Gardening can sometimes feel like a lost art. One of those skills the old timers forgot to pass down. And without grandma's guidance, gardening can be full of heartache. Over the past few years, I've wasted a lot of time, money, and effort learning to garden. At times, I wish there was a reference that just simplified the whole process. So I decided to make one. My plan is to create a video series that can teach others to be successful at gardening while avoiding the mistakes I made along the way. This video will hopefully explain how to apply what I believe is the easiest and cheapest way to start a garden. Before we jump into the method, let's define our vocabulary word for the day. Occultation. This means to hide something from view. But when you hear it used in the context of agriculture, it means to hide plants from sunlight, which they need to survive. You've probably noticed when you leave the water hose laying on the grass for some time, the grass underneath doesn't seem to be thriving. This can be used to our benefit. If a covering is placed on the ground, not only will it starve the grass of light, causing it to die, it will create a warm, humid environment that will trigger weed seeds to sprout. They just won't make it very long in the dark. I first learned about this technique from J.M. Fortier's book, The Market Gardener. Typically, I see occultation used in one of two ways. The first way is a reusable covering is placed on the ground until it has killed everything underneath. Then you remove the covering and start your garden. This method works well if you already have gardening space and just want to start another area and you're not in a hurry. The second way I see occultation being used is the method Charles Dowding is famous for. In this method, a biodegradable covering is laid out, usually cardboard or paper, and a thick layer of compost is placed on top, which you could start planting into right away. This method is faster, but requires more effort to acquire, break down, and place the cardboard. It also takes a good bit of compost to lay a layer a few inches thick. Just to give you an idea, to lay 6 inches of compost over a 20 by 20 garden spot, it would take 200 bags of the store-bought stuff. That's about $1,200 in compost. If you have access to large amounts of affordable compost, this method is great, but it's not my preferred way of starting a garden. After seeing these methods, I discovered a technique that is used in greenhouses or covered high tunnels where a reusable covering is placed and holes are made where the plants will go. I decided to try it outside and I haven't looked back since. As far as coverings, you can use plastic sheeting, woven ground cover, or even an old bed sheet if you're really trying to cut costs. I use a woven weed barrier made by a company called DeWitt. I bought a roll of this material a few years back, 3 foot wide by 300 foot long for around $70, and a pack of 12-inch garden staples for about $30. If $100 doesn't fit into your budget, I understand. You could use an old bed sheet and just weigh down the edges to keep it from blowing away. But if you need help justifying the $100, understand that these materials will last for years and cost much less than a tractor or tiller. While putting this video together, I also saw that Haas Tools is selling that same woven weed fabric material in large sheets with the holes already made for you. I've not used this product, but I can vouch that Haas Tools is a great company to buy from. Not all reusable ground covers are created equal, so let's discuss the pros and cons of each. Plastic sheeting is easy to work with, but doesn't allow water through, so you have to make sure the water is finding its way to the plants. This is sometimes done by placing drip irrigation under the plastic or even subsurface drip tape under the soil. This can be a pain if the irrigation springs a leak though. Using a bed sheet is probably the most cost-effective way of doing it, but they're usually made of materials that will not withstand the elements for very long. And woven weed fabric tends to be packaged in rolls around 3 or 4 foot wide, which means you can't move the whole sheet as one piece, and it requires more staples to hold it in place. That being said, it does allow water to pass through. Creating the holes for your plants to go into is different for each material as well. For the plastic or bed sheets, just cut an X into the material. That way you can tuck your plant in. The woven weed fabric needs to be burnt in order to keep it from unraveling. You can heat up something metal with a torch to make your X's, or you can burn circles. Just be careful. So the ground cover is in place, taking care of the occultation for us. And the holes are created so that we can plant into the ground. Now it's just a matter of digging out the grass and weeds and you can start planting. An optional step is to add a handful of compost or potting soil to each hole, which your plant will appreciate and will help cover any grass that tries to peek around the opening in the ground cover. Remember, this ground cover doesn't have to stay in place forever thanks to occultation. After a few months or maybe the following year, you can remove it and you'll have bare soil to work with. Like I said, my plan is to create a series that simplifies gardening. So I'm going to try and cover seed starting, irrigation, fertilizing, weed management. So if any of that interests you, please subscribe. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments. Give me a thumbs up if this video seemed helpful, or a thumbs down if you didn't enjoy it. Just hope this saves you a headache. Hope to see you again soon.